Good morning, Cincinnati, and welcome into Season 2, Episode 1 of the Bearcat Brunch on the BCJ Network, brought to you again this year by our wonderful sponsors at Royal Links Golf Tours. Have you always wanted to play golf at St. Andrews? Have you ever enjoyed a perfect pint of Guinness in Ireland? Royal Links Golf Tours is a golf tour specialist offering unforgettable golf experiences in Scotland, England, Ireland, and Wales. Their custom itineraries are more than golf trips. They are immersive, cultural, and country experiences that will surprise and delight you both on and off the course. Royal Links Golf Tours is owned by former Bearcat quarterback Hayden Moore and his partner, UC alum Jeff Bartholomew. So if you'd ever want to get out and play St. Andrews or famed Ballybunion or enjoy that perfect pint of Guinness, please visit their website at royallinksgolftours.com or call them directly at 770-331-1525. And with that, we are back for, like I said, Season 2, Episode 1. Right off the bat, want to say, unfortunately, Hayden Moore is a little bit under the weather, so we're going to let him get rested up, and he will be joining us next week after the EKU game to talk about that and some other stuff, and then, Jeff and I'll get into our college football takes for the week, but glad to be back. It's been a while, Jeff. Good morning, Chelsea. Thanks for everyone that gets up early with us. A quick bit of housekeeping, I guess. If you're not familiar with the show, this is your first time, Jeff and I will kind of recap, dive into the numbers, look at some of the analytics of each UC game the following morning, and then we will do a quick tour around the country, highlighting kind of the big games of the week or some trends that are starting to show up. And, we'd like to keep it right at the hour mark. So if we are able to squeeze in some Bearcats in the NFL stuff, we will, kind of previewing what guys have been doing, what we're looking at for that Sunday later in the afternoon. But that's kind of the nuts and bolts of the show. So everybody's kind of heard me. Good morning, Deanna. Thanks for joining us again. Everyone's kind of heard me for the last however long talk about the upcoming season, and they will hear plenty more Wednesday night when Chad and I preview the season. So we have not talked much about the upcoming season, so I want to just kick it to you right away and kind of take me into what your thoughts are as the summer's progressed, as you've kind of seen what's happened at Higher Ground and kind of what you're looking at heading into week one.
Yeah, I think that from the UK, we got a fan from the UK over here in the chat. That's
all
awesome.
Right. We're going global.
Yes, exactly. Well, I mean, it is the world-class golf experience from Royal Links Golf Course.
That's right.
Everything that I've gotten this summer and from like spring ball till now, like through Higher Ground, obviously has been through the amazing coverage of what everybody else at Bearcat Journal has done, getting out to the Higher Ground and seeing that in the scrimmages. And if you haven't been to Bearcat Journal's Instagram page, there are great little snippets of interviews with coaches and players and that kind of thing. So my outlook has, I would say, changed a little bit. Obviously, this is a season in which, like, I think people probably, most folks at the end of the season going into like you're losing your coach, right? We lost the coaching staff. We talked about that kind of stuff, last year, what you're running into with that. You're going into the Big 12 into a Power 5 conference. You need to kind of temper your expectations. And I thought kind of immediately, the beginning of the year with all those things going on, the loss of a bunch of players to the portal, new guys coming in, I was thinking maybe 4 games would be a good kind of like basement level of like, let's win 4 games this year. Let's like at least show some fight in some other games and make it look like, we do belong here. But obviously there's some challenges there. Anytime you have a giant turnover of players and coaching staff, and moving into a Power Five conference from the Group of Five, I thought 4 games would be a good basement. However, after listening to all of the coverage, I would like to bump that up to if I think we can make a bowl game this year. I think 6 wins, where is probably like the basement, and maybe as many as 8 if things fall our way.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked a lot that there are so many coin toss games. There's so big of a variance depending on, you know, mainly Emory Jones and the offensive line. I would say, like, you know, if Emory Jones were to not be able to start all 12 games, if the offensive line has injuries, then I could see things kind of getting off the tracks. If they're able to play well and be healthy, then I could see things overachieve. Um, you know, I think it's human nature, it's fan nature too. When you have a coaching change, and especially in the portal era, you have a lot of quote unquote bad things happening quickly. You have a coaching change, and then there's uncertainty. You have players leaving, you have recruits decommitting. So like all this stuff is happening very quickly, and it kind of casts a negative light over the direction of not just a UC program, but a lot of programs deal with it when they have a coaching change, and especially one where the guy leaving was uber successful, building a great recruiting class. You see that kind of cut in half. You see players leaving. And so your instinct is to kind of temper expectations. But I think it's important to just realize that all that stuff happened in December, January-ish, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And the season is not until September. We need to let things breathe. And as we've seen, it's not like they weren't going to add players. You know, it wasn't like they weren't going to be able to coach these guys and get in the weight room and all those things. So as the summer has progressed, I think, you know, positivity has raised a bit. Expectations have probably raised a bit. I mean, I'm still, you know, when I really break it down, probably in the 5-7, 6-6 type of range. But again, it's a lot can change week to week. But I do think, you know, like you said, initially have one set of ideas and thoughts, and then as the off season has gone along, and that's the way it should be, you know, you're hoping that's the way it should be. The expectations are growing and you're feeling better, not the opposite. You're not, you know, getting a worse feeling or the same feeling. So offensively, what are kind of the biggest things that you either want to see this season, just want to see week one, like kind of where are you at in how you're going to be viewing the EKU game?
So obviously, like EKU is not going to be like, I mean, that should be a win, right? Like if we come out against EKU and we can't move the ball, or, you know, we struggle blocking their, you know, defensive line, they're living in the backfield, like then there's going to be a lot of question marks. And we bring back like 2 starters from last year, like across all of the offense.
Yes, well won, really.
So there we go. Like it is a totally, like, you know, rebuilt offense. They went and got guys. They brought guys in. If you watch some of the interviews that you guys did with like the coaches, they talked about, like, with the offensive line, like trying to stretch things out and move things, and like their analytics show that the way that they run their offensive schemes and setups, that like this was pretty neat to hear, that they try to get the defensive linemen to move an extra, they said like a yard and a half. They show that it's like an extra yard and a half that they run every play. And then by the end of the start of the second half, you know, fourth quarter, that kind of thing, the plays that were getting 2 to 3 yards at the start of the game are now getting, you know, your 8 to 10 to 12 big chunk plays. I want to see that. I want to be able to run the ball to open up the passing game to some of these guys that they've brought in. D. Wiggins, which when I was talking to my son about it, he was like, he thought I was, you know, making some kind of Bengals joke about T. Higgins. I want to see him and Donovan Ollie be able to eat on the outside. And to do that, you got to be able to run the ball. And I don't want to see it where we're going out there and we're ending up in these situations where it is a definitive passing down on third down because it's third and 7 or 8 instead of being able to start off maybe get 4 or 5 yards on first down with a good run, set it up where on third down it's third and short. And I know that that's something that you always want to do in football is have a third and short kind of situation. But I felt like last year, and we talked about it a lot, where we could never get the running game going on a consistent basis, and it kind of it had hurt us. There's no other way to put it. And so this year, I think if we can get the running game going, and it sounds like we got Corey Kiner and Miles Montgomery. Is that where we're going to be?
Yes.
Probably.
Those are. I would say those will be your 1A, however you want to describe it. Getting the
numbers you want to
bulk of the carries.
I mean, we'll see. I think it's going to help and be beneficial to have a guy like Emory Jones back there who is more mobile, so the defense can't just hone in on the running back getting the bulk of the carries. Where he's mobile and he can throw the ball. Even like if you go back and look like with Evan Prater last year, I get he was injured. We've recently found out, but like when he was in there and he was able to move, like there was, it kind of opened the offense up a little bit. And I expect Emory to be able to open the offense up totally and maybe be throwing some passes to our recently converted wide receiver Evan Prater.
Yeah, I think just real quick, what on EKU, yes, they should really probably have their way. They went 7-5 last year, made the FCS playoffs, lost in the first round, but they actually beat Bowling Green, so they had a FBS win, 59-57 in 7 overtimes. But I believe they lost their best offensive player. I think he actually wide receiver. I want to say he transferred to Iowa State, so we might see him later on this year. And in several of the games they lost. I mean, they gave up 42 to Eastern Michigan. They gave up obviously the 59 or 57 to Bowling Green. They gave up 53 in a win to North Alabama. They gave up 42 to Jacksonville State. They gave up 38 to Kennesaw State. They gave up 52 in the first round of the playoffs. So defense, not sure it's going to be a huge strong point for the Colonels. Offensively, I want to see, first and foremost, I just want to see good operation. Like no limited penalties, limited false starts, limited lining, illegal formation, stuff like that. No turnovers, no delayed games, like not having to call timeouts because you don't know what the hell's going on. Just stuff like that in the first game situation with a new coaching staff where you're trying to work in the off season of getting all of the operational parts of things in order. I want to see that translate to the game where in a situation where it shouldn't matter because you're just way more talented, but I want to see it going well because at some point that stuff will matter. Running the ball, I've harped on running the ball. They've been incredibly inefficient running the ball the last 2 years. I want to see where that is. And I just kind of want to see Emory Jones overall, feel for the game. How much are they running him intentionally? How much is he running on his own? The wide receivers should be able to get open fairly easily. So that's a little bit harder thing to watch because, guys are probably going to be running more open than they will be against Baylor and, Oklahoma and stuff like that.
True, but you can see, we could see at least his accuracy level.
Right.
I mean, that's something that can be judged there.
Yeah, the guy might be wide open, but it's still a bad ball because in another situation, he's not as open, or in another situation, like you want to be able to hit him in stride because you got to pick up a first down or something, and then you make the wide receiver stop. So just kind of stuff like that. I think especially in the run game, they're probably going to have a pretty big day they'll rotate in a lot of backs. Chelsea mentioned Ryan Montgomery. Definitely not forgetting about Ryan Montgomery. I just think those other two guys are kind of at the top, and we'll see where that Monty slides in with them as well. So flipping it over to the defensive side, obviously the group that has the most players coming back from last year's team, but a whole new scheme and some guys in different positions. What are kind of the big big talking points that you're looking from that unit?
Well, obviously, I think we'll go right off the rip with the easiest one, like we did last year. We'll talk about Deshaun Pace and his move to, I guess they're calling it the star position, which is just the way I understand it, kind of just go be a heat-seeking missile and find the ball.
Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, it's the best way to describe it is an outside linebacker / safety that covers the slot a lot. So maybe a tight end, maybe a running back out of the backfield, maybe a slot receiver. He has had the opportunity to detonate on several kind of swing passes or check down passes to running backs. So, he's going to light some dudes up if other teams try to do that, because he could have done it on about 3 or 4 different occasions to his own teammates. So that's something we'll definitely be watching, where that position kind of can make plays.
Yeah. So that's going to be exciting. Obviously, we'll maybe if we have time, we'll talk about it, whatever. But his brother is obviously doing what we thought he would do, getting to the next level. And then the DBs, obviously, we've been spoiled here with the DB play, so it'd be nice to see that step up a little bit. I guess what Taj Ward has moved back out to safety, and I guess Sammy Anderson's been impressive, at least from what I've been able to take from some of the reports you guys have been putting out there. So it sounds like the defense is going to be, potentially the anchor for this team once again, and that's good. You've got Dante Corleone, who's first team preseason All-American in one ranking, and a second team preseason All-American in another ranking, along with Mason Fletcher. So, and he, in his little interview that he had, he talked about how the guys behind him, make it so that he's got time to get in and do what he needs to do, because they're covering receivers and the like. So I'm just excited to see what they're able to do with him and Malik Van coming back, and Jawan Briggs, because those are all very large human beings that enjoy getting in the backfield and causing chaos.
Absolutely. Excuse me, hit the mute button on accident twice. But yeah, I agree most definitely, and I think I'll be kind of looking at similar things as offensively. Like, are there any blown coverages, or guys just totally not gap aware, stopping the run? I'm going to be interested to see. We know Brian Brown and this defense is going to put pressure. Are they going to do that right from the jump against a team that they probably don't need to? Are you going to hold some stuff back? You play Pitt the next week. You probably don't need to put all your exotic blitzes on tape to beat EKU. Or is that just how he is, and he doesn't care? And he's like, I'm going to show it all because I'm going to do it all, or I'm going to do what I do. And then it's up to them to figure out how to stop it. I don't necessarily need to hide anything. So that'll be interesting. Again, tough to kind of read how players do in this situation, because it's, someone could come in and have 3 sacks, and you're like, well, the offensive tackle blocking them is 6'3", 270, and the defensive end is practically the same size or something like that. So, but I'll be looking to see, like, Daniel Greshik has been the top guy from a pass rush standpoint. Who else shows something? You mentioned Taj Ward at safety. obviously we're going to be watching. We got two new corners on the outside, Jordan Young, Sammy Anderson. How do those guys do? But for me, defensively, it's going to be more about just what it looks like because it's a stark contrast to what it looked like, especially last year. It's more in the Marcus Freeman mold of things than much more than the Mike Tressel. So how do these guys that returned, how do they fit in? They've all said they love it. They've all said that it's great for them. They just get to go forward and go cause havoc. So let's see what that looks like in a game against another team, albeit an FCS one that they're going to be overmatched. Especially like I can't imagine who's blocking Dante Corleone for EKU. So
that could get ugly very quickly. But these games are like it's kind of. It's nice to start off that way, obviously, because then you can see maybe a little bit of the depth. Because if you start putting some of the twos, the threes out there, hopefully it gets to that point where you're able to run guys out there and maybe try some different things, and maybe there's some more exotic things that you're going to put in just to see how your guys are picking up the system that you've been trying to install. Because I feel like on the defensive side, with more guys returning from a different system and having played together in that system, it might be a little more difficult to say, to install a new one and have no hiccups, right? As opposed to like maybe on the offensive side where you're literally, you're bringing in guys that you would like to think that the guys that they went and got fit more the mold that they're ready to put in and can fall more into their system already, as opposed to taking other guys that are already here from one system and putting them into your own, if that makes sense.
Oh no, for sure. And you bring up a good point. Like, we like a lot of the pieces on the defensive line, but a lot of them have not seen a ton of action behind the main guys. So this is a good game to hopefully see like a Jamal. Like, can you get a big enough lead? How much is Jamal Williams going to get to play while the game is still in the balance? First quarter, second quarter. Is he a regular sub player coming in and out, or is he more of a guy that if the game gets out of hand, then he's going to play a bunch of snaps, and then we get a chance to see how he looks? The guys in the interior of the defensive line, I'm really high on. Derek Shepard, Jalen Hunt, the transfer from Michigan State, Dominic Perry, like Corleone's, probably not going to play a ton of snaps in this game if things are going well. So I want to see what those guys do, because through the length of a season, his best play is going to be when he plays less than 50% of the snaps. But he can only do that against better teams if you are confident in the guys you're going to put in to replace him.
If the drop-off is not drastic.
Right. I mean, we don't want him playing 75 snaps because we don't think he can be at his best at 75 snaps. But if you can't trust anybody else, then that's what's going to happen. So I want to see those guys. I want to see, Dorian Jones and Jack Dingle kind of, both first. Dorian's been in this defense, but first time being impactful Bearcats. So while there are more starters, defensively, there are still a lot of guys that I'll be watching to see how they perform either in their first time as a starter or in an elevated role as like, okay, can this guy be a relied upon, 1A or 1B or 2A type of player?
Yeah. I know that obviously you guys have been able to get out and see some stuff going on live. How had because we brought in a kicker from
Carter Brown from Arizona State,
along with I guess he came along with Emory. How has he looked at? Because obviously the kicking game has been one of those things where we're always like, can this guy perform? Like,
I think he's been good. Like, from what I've seen, he's been pretty darn good. The last day at Higher Ground, he hit one bad ball, like a pretty big hook. But other than that, I think he was maybe 5 for 6 overall, 6 for 7 overall. I don't know the exact number, but he's got a good leg. I think at first he was maybe driving the ball a little low. I think he's got that figured out. He hit one upper, I don't know the yardage. I was down in by the goal line, and upper 40s, 47, 48, 49, something like that, with plenty of room to spare. So he seems like a pretty consistent guy. I mean, I think we'll have much more shades of Ryan Coe than some of the other unfortunate years we've had kicking the ball. So it's not something that I'm worried about. He will do the place kicking, and then it seems like Temple transfer Rory Bell will handle the kickoffs. And he's got a pretty damn big leg. Like, they were working special teams kickoff drill, and he was consistently putting it 5-6 yards into the end zone.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear, because I know that obviously over the last few years it's been like we've got to kick the ball to win a game, or to force something.
I don't think we're gonna get to the point where we were when I was like, if you're inside the 30, you go for it on 4th down, no matter what the yardage is.
Yeah, that's not what you want to see out of a team in the in a Power 5 conference.
Yeah. So. But no, I think obviously Mason Fletcher's an outstanding kicker.
Oh yeah.
As long as everything progresses with him, I'm sure he'll be in the conversation for the Ray Guy Award. I'm not. I think Braden Smith will be your punt returner. I'm not sure on kickoff who's going to be back there. That'll be one that I'll be watching. I mean, I'm sure they've cycled through several guys, and at the times I've been able to watch, it's not something that I've paid a ton of attention to, just because I know a lot can be dependent on who's healthy and things of that nature. But we'll see who that guy is come Saturday. Let's flip it and just I want your takes on this first season in the Big 12. What do you think of kind of like who do you think is kind of the premier teams? What are your thoughts? I know we have 4 Big 12 teams in the first version of the top 25. UC only plays one of them in Oklahoma. So it is kind of funny that we've been talking, which of course we are because we're UC fans. We've been talking about how, I don't want to say easy, but how maybe lucky they got with their first year schedule, given everything that is also happening at the same time.
I mean,
that I think some people that follow the league, other fan sites or whatever, are starting to realize that, man, I wonder, like, did UC slip the schedule makers like a couple hundos or something and was like, take it easy on us? So I think that part of that is kind of playing into maybe some of our heightened expectations. But again, this league, the last 2 years, all 4 teams in the conference championship were not in the top, few teams going into the season. So just because we think this might be a little bit of an easier schedule in the last weekend and last week in August doesn't mean that that's what it's going to be come middle of November.
I mean, you could never really especially with the transfer portal being the way it is, and with teams being able to go out and fill needs with experienced players. Things could change, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I've done a deep dive on all of these teams. But I have had the conversation that you were just mentioning. I know that Aaron and I talked about it when the schedules came out. That it did seem that they could have hammered us with a very stout schedule and kind of been like, welcome to the Power 5, and we're going to punch you in the mouth immediately with all of our top teams. And I don't think they did that. Kind of the bottom half of the Big 12 from last year's is who we're playing. Now, does that translate to more of the coin flip kind of games that we were just discussing. I don't know. I want to feel better about it now, having heard all the things like we said. That the first game, let me take that back. The game against Pitt, I think obviously this game against EKU, I don't know that we're going to learn much more than are these guys able to at least function in these new systems without big issues. The Pitt game will be I think a bit of a test as to how true that efficiency is, and then you've got Oklahoma coming to Nippert, right? Is there a better kind of start to the Big 12, to your Big 12 campaign, your Big 12, experience than bringing Oklahoma, who's not going to be in the Big 12 much longer, to Nippert and hopefully getting a win out of that? Who knows where they're going to be at? What were they, 6-7 last year, something like that? What they were?
They were not good.
No, they were 6-7 last year. So,
it's weird. They have a fairly high number and they're in the preseason top 25. But I've also seen some people being like, this could be like another rough year. I'm not sure I go that far because I look at their schedule and I'm just like, at some point their talent has to I could very easily see them being 5-0 when they head to Red River. They play Arkansas State, SMU, Tulsa, UC, and Iowa State. There's not a surefire loss in there, but I don't know. They were not good last year. They were very uncharacteristic Oklahoma last year, in a lot of areas, especially defensively. I've heard some people talking about last year, they just looked off, get off the bus, looked small, comparatively speaking to other OU teams. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but yeah, EKU to me is like a confirmation game. Are you confirming things that we think, or are we asking more questions because some things that we thought we had a good idea on did not show themselves against a team that I'm not going to say inferior opponent, but a team that has less talent than you. They're FCS. They have fewer scholarships. They have considerably less money in their program. It is what it is.
Right.
But yeah, Pitt is I think from a talent standpoint, is a pretty even game, but you have a veteran coaching staff. You have no major influx of, roster turnover, player acquisition, and it's on the road. First year staff, first year quarterback, a lot of first year guys playing their first, big time road game. How do they handle that? So yeah, that'll be your first real idea of where maybe this team is.
Oklahoma State is the highest, the quote unquote best team from last year in the Big 12 that is on UC's schedule, and they were 4-5 in conference. So you're looking at all sub 500 teams in conference.
Yeah,
last year is what, and then obviously you're playing teams that we're more familiar with, right? Like UCF and Houston, and then BYU is another addition to the Big 12 that's coming in that we'll have to run up against, and that's out in Provo. But when we get to
there
those
are.
games,
There are a lot of things on the schedule that makes you feel like it could go a little bit better than maybe we thought a few months ago. But again, these margins are going to be so tight in most of these games. And so, do you get the breaks? Do you stay healthy? It's going to be, I think what I saw at one point, there were 7 of their 12 games. The initial spread was -3 or +3, that in that 6-point variance. That's nothing. That doesn't mean anything.
Well, and I almost want to say you're going to see more of that going forward. If you're looking the betting wise and that kind of stuff, when you have the conference realignment that's going on across the country. You've got teams that aren't familiar with each other that are going to start playing each other, and obviously that'll even out eventually. But like with the transfer and influx and whatnot of talent going from this team to that team, and I didn't get my playing time here, and I go here, and I'm actually getting the right looks, and like whatever, this place fits me better. You have almost entirely new teams every year of players that aren't even coming up in that system coming into the system from somewhere else, and maybe they had success there. Whereas it used to just be you had a couple kids that transferred here and there. You never really saw big name guys moving from one place to another unless it was like a grad transfer. Um, so these kind of coin toss. I don't know what we really have until 3-4 weeks into the season to be able to say like how does UC truly match up against Oklahoma. I would like to say when we get to the Oklahoma game, we're going to be 3-0. Is that? I mean, we should certainly at least be 2-1 at the very least.
I would think so. Yeah, I mean that's the thing with the portal now is a lot of teams are going into seasons with much more unanswered questions because they're able to move their roster around so much. But it also allows you, if you hit it right and if you do it well, it allows you to get things going much quicker than in the past. It used to be when you'd have a coaching change and a recruiting class would fall apart or guys would leave. That first year was almost always like we'll just, we're trying to piece it together and we're building for that next year. Now with the portal, it's like you don't get a year zero anymore or a year one anymore. Like you are kind of expected to be like, listen, all these players were available to everybody. It's on you to add the pieces and to come into this situation. And I don't think anybody's being like, hey, you got to be in the running to go to the conference championship game. But like, I think we've all kind of had the idea of like, let's not, like, there's enough here, and the Big 12 is very competitive, but it's not a murderer's row. Like, I don't think there's any reason to be like, we shouldn't be playing to go to a bowl game once we hit November.
The cupboard is not bare.
No.
I mean,
there's a lot of talent at the top of the roster. It's a matter of in the Big 12, late October, November, how much of that middle of the roster can be relied upon to play like significant snaps.
And really, obviously that all like the build up for that obviously started in the spring. But if you can get to that time, if you can get to that, I don't know, the back half of the season, and you've maintained health, and maybe some of these games like the Miami game or like the EKU game, whatever, maybe some of these games you can get them out of hand, and you can get some of those guys in by the end of the season. Maybe those guys that are kind of your twos, maybe a couple of those twos have become your like 1Bs, and you don't see that necessary the drop off, and you can get the rest, and you can give your Dante Corleones a nice blow for a few snaps out there, so that now he can come back in and be performing at his top. And obviously that's what you want to see and that's what you see across the country whenever you have a team that is, like, for instance, like in Alabama, who has guys that they can just interchange in and out, and there's never really a drop off of who's on the field. Like, yeah, you're going to have your superstars, and it's going to be difficult to like replace a guy like that, but you have dudes that can go out there and play at a level that is as high, if not higher than the competition at almost every position.
Yeah, it works twofold. Like, that you're, especially like your bigger guys, your D-line, your offensive line guys, like, they're not built to just play every snap. So you need guys to be able to replace them. But then you also need to be able to know that those other guys can do it, because if an injury were to happen, you don't want that guy being thrust into play and he's like never played all year. It's week 7 and things aren't going well, so we're having to play the starters like all the snaps, and then one of them gets hurt, and now this guy that hasn't had to play is now
The
playing
guy.
the bulk of the snaps, and he hasn't been out there yet. So things aren't going to go well from that end. Who do you think? You know, I think I went Texas Tech. I think in the Big 12 championship when the Big 12 media poll came out back whenever that was. A lot of people are liking Texas and Oklahoma. I feel like based on recent history, that's far too chalky. Uh, who do you like coming out of the conference and making it to Dallas?
Uh, like Texas, and I I would like to see Kansas State.
I think
But
they're going to be real good again.
so, and I want to be off to the side a little bit with it and not be normal like everybody else. So there we go.
Yeah,
I think that's where I want to. Well, we're all fall. And I mean, who knows though? Like you said, like you're gonna have your top of the conference teams, but a couple upsets here and there, and somebody crazy might end up in there. You might have a team that rips off a bunch of wins and is undefeated halfway through the season that had no business being undefeated halfway 3/4 of the way
yeah.
through the season.
I mean, this year it's different now because before it was the 10 teams, they all played each other, 9 conference games. Now you have the unbound schedule. So it's like, does someone that maybe was picked in the middle of the conference in the poll, are they actually better? They end up being better than we all thought, but then they also kind of get the quote unquote easier schedule, and they end up going whatever 7-2, 8-1 because they didn't play Texas, Kansas State, Oklahoma, like TCU,
TCU.
whatever the matchups are, and they just have an easier path where everybody else is kind of picking each other off. That could definitely happen this year because the schedules are not, they're not all the 9-game play everybody wants deal.
And obviously, like as UC fans, we would love to see it be, the stars align for UC where they've been, like we all think, at least at this point, gifted maybe an easier schedule, and they somehow come out the back end of this thing and they're like, how did that happen? I don't necessarily think that's going to happen because I think that they're the coin flip games that we've talked about, and I think some of them obviously are not going to come up all roses for UC. But I don't know. It could be something like that happens where one of the, like you said, one of the teams that has the potentially easier schedule and has an upset here or there where all of a sudden they come to the end of the season and they're like, well, this is what it comes down to with this unbalanced schedule.
Right. Nationally, let's do a quick dive into kind of, I guess, the bigger conferences. Get our kind of thoughts. Let's start with the defending champs in the SEC. Georgia is the preseason heavy favorite. In the AP poll, they received 60 of a possible 63 first place votes. So, again, you have Georgia, you have LSU. My boys in Knoxville they're saying are going to be good again this year. I'm taking a little more of a wait and see approach with Joe Milton at quarterback. But what are you looking for this year in the SEC? Can Georgia do it again with a brand new quarterback and maybe a better defense than even we've seen lately? But what are your thoughts in the SEC as we head into week 1?
Well, I mean, obviously, I want LSU to lose every single game. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that they'll, I think that, what are they ranked? Let me see,
Fifth.
So you've got what is okay. So Florida State and Clemson and Washington are the only not Big Ten or SEC schools in the top 10.
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
And USC's in there too.
Okay. Well, I guess they will be a Big Ten team.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, just not this year yet. I don't know. I hate to knock Georgia down a peg, I think until somebody proves that they don't belong up there, I think obviously they're going to be the heavy favorite. Um, hate to think that Ohio State's probably also going to be a national championship contender, but that's gonna happen too, and that's
Yeah,
sickening in my
the,
stomach.
the,
But
the, the thing this year that we don't typically see is, you have Georgia at 1, Ohio State at 3, Alabama at 4, with quarterback questions. Carson Beck is the starter at Georgia. I don't know if they've named a starter at Ohio State, and I know they haven't named a starter at Alabama. So, they're going to have a lot of talent around them, but first year starters in big situations at some of the premier programs around the league. I do kind of agree with you of like somebody's going to have to knock Georgia off. In the SEC, I can't really pick against them right now, but we'll see what happens there. Let's go Big Ten real quick. I think there's a pretty clear top group: Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. How do you see that shaking out?
The typical top group. You know, who knows? Maybe those guys up at Wisconsin might do something crazy. But I actually like the way that it's ranked out. I think Michigan, they're riding high. I think that they will continue to do so in the Big Ten. Have they changed the way that their stuff is scheduled through for the championship this year, or is it still?
They've had unbalanced for a little while now. So yeah, because like Wisconsin doesn't play Michigan or Penn State, but I agree. Michigan is my preseason national champ.
All the way.
Yep, we'll see what happens. But I mean, the people that follow the NFL are talking that they might break Georgia's draft pick record this year. We'll see. But yeah, I like a lot of what they have going on. I think the quarterback at Ohio State question is fascinating to me because that offense is absolutely loaded, but I'm not, you're not sure who the quarterback's going to be.
Yeah, but and that's the thing though, is like you can you don't know who the quarterback's going to be, but you're not. I mean, you're dealing with picking from which
five star do you want to start?
Right,
but we've seen plenty of those guys not be able to pan out.
Yeah, some of them don't. Some of them end up being 5 stars that whatever got that way some other route than actually being a true talented quarterback. Is what it is. But I think when you've got the selection of 4 guys that are high 4-star 5-star kids, like I think you might be able to pick one out that can at least take. I mean, like you said, their offense at Ohio State is just like, I mean, it's stupid, right? Like somebody should be able to get behind the center and at least function well enough to make that machine work.
Right.
Is it? I don't know. I still like Michigan.
Well, and that's part of the reason I like Michigan is you have a lot of returning guys coming. You have quarterback coming back, running back coming back. They've done a really good job finding the right transfers that fit Michigan and everything what that means. So,
I mean, it is interesting though that like you said, like what the NFL guys think that maybe Michigan's going to break the draft pick record, and then you look at at the AP polls and stuff like that, and they kind of fall in the same boat that we fell in of like until somebody shows otherwise. Like Georgia's got 60 of the votes.
Georgia still has a lot of good players, so it's not Stetson Bennett leaving is gonna.
So the little fella.
Yeah. So let's
he's
go.
Only 48 years old.
Right.
His Buckeye
let's go
card.
ACC real quick. Florida State, Clemson, both in the top 10.
Yeah, that's about it.
It's really not great After that, a lot of middle of the road, 8 wins, 7, 8 wins type teams. I guess I'm most
Probably.
interested of like in a similar vein of the Texas is back. Like, okay, the Florida State hype train has arrived officially, and it was building last year, and for good reason. But it is now, it's here. Now show me that you can run roughshod over a conference that you have a lot more talent than.
Well, I mean, they open up with a
Oh,
potential to
that's the
like,
game. That's the game of the weekend for sure. I mean,
and they,
LSU, Florida State, in Orlando. There's really, unfortunately, there's not a lot of like great games this weekend. Like, you have LSU, Florida State, West Virginia, Penn State, North Carolina, South Carolina. Like, there's not a bunch this year that you're like, man, I got to make sure that opening weekend, they really lined up some great non-conference games.
I mean, yeah, with Utah, Florida.
Yeah, but if Cam Rising doesn't play for Utah, I'm not sure what Florida still is. Like, it's a good name. It's a good game on paper, but if Utah starting quarterback doesn't play and Graham Mertz is still the Graham Mertz that transferred from Wisconsin, then I'm not sure it's worth watching.
Hey, you get the battle of the Miamis.
Oh yeah, Miami versus Miami. That one needs to have happened a long time ago. Very similar cultures, very similar college locations. Like, they have a lot in common. They should have been playing a long time ago.
And then, obviously we have the debut of Prime out there in Colorado.
It's funny. I didn't see the video, the promo video, but someone tweeted it out. How like Fox did like 30-second promo, and it was almost entirely about Colorado, and the person that the tweet was from was like, yeah, Colorado and Deion Sanders, and then you have like 3 seconds of like, oh yeah, by the way, the team they're playing went to the national championship game last year. It's like, wait a second, this team stinks and might win 3 games, and the entire commercial was about them and not the team that went to the title game.
Right. They are riding the hype train like no other.
Oh, that thing is going a million miles an hour. It might make it to the station and it might crash into the ocean. Like, we're not sure.
It's going to be interesting. Obviously, like, is there a better way to like, is there, baptism by fire kind of like, hey, are you like, is this team really, ready for this? Are you ready for this? Like,
well, they go TCU week 1 and then Nebraska week 2. And Matt Rule is just going to be like, we're going to run it a million times right down your throat.
Well, I've actually seen a lot of like Matt Rule videos recently.
We'll get a pretty good idea of whether this first year of Deion is going to be much of anything right out of the gate.
If the hype train, as you said, if it's going into the ocean or not. So
yeah, like let's since we were talking Deion, let's go Pac-12 real quick.
Pac-4.
From an on-field standpoint, it's a shame that their shit is blown up, and that was the conversation all summer because they've got some really good teams and some damn good quarterbacks. I mean, did you see the throw Caleb Williams made last night? No. Where he, like, the snap was bad, like, rolled through his legs. He turned around and just picked it up and just in almost like one motion, picked it up, turned, and threw it 60 yards downfield to his wide receiver who caught it in stride and ran in like another 30 yards for a touchdown.
Well, that's a highlight that I'm going to have to go find now.
Yeah, it was it was pretty ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, you have him at USC. You have Michael Penix at Washington. They're in the top 10. Bo Nix is back at Oregon. They're 15th. Utah has won the conference 2 years in a row. I think that gets forgot about. I mean, they're back-to-back Pac-12 champs. A lot's going to have to do with what Cam Rising's health status is. I think Arizona is coming up. Jaden Delore is a fun quarterback to watch. So yeah, there's actually a lot of good football in the Pac-12, but it was very funny that again last night you couldn't watch the number 6 team in the country. You couldn't watch the defending Heisman Trophy winner and projected number 1 pick in the draft because their game was on Pac-12 Network. So most of the country couldn't see it.
I understand TV deals. Like I understand like where they come from, how they're like worked out. Like as far as like things have value and that kind. Like there's got to be a way. It's like I hate the NCAA for everything and all that they stand for and that they are, but like they're like I don't like make an NCAA network. I don't know. Like I want to be able to I want to be able to flip through and find whatever I want to watch. As far as like I mean, it would certainly make our job easier on Sunday mornings to go around the league if you could just like click through some other games.
Well, it's been a talk of college football Twitter and stuff, and I think someone actually did the math. I didn't read the article. I saw it scroll through on my Twitter feed of like how much you would have to pay if you wanted to watch every college football game. So, like, if you wanted to make sure that you saw every possible game, you had the opportunity to watch every game, how much that would be, because you'd have to have this, Peacock and obviously ESPN and Fox and FS1 and Pac-12 Network, and like I can't even imagine how much it would cost if you wanted to have the ability to watch every game.
Watch everything, yeah.
Yeah. So, excuse me. But yeah, so it was great. You could catch a couple highlights on Twitter of the number 6 team in the country or whatever they are. Number 6 team in the country. With quarterback that it was making insane passes.
It's easier to watch the World Athletic Championships taking place in Budapest, Hungary, than it is to watch anything from the Pac-12.
Yeah, well, it was funny this week. I don't know if you saw it. USC signed a deal with DirecTV as like their, main media part, like signed some deal, and it's like, and their game, you couldn't even watch their game on DirecTV this weekend because they don't have a deal with the Pac-12 network. So the irony of like, hey, look at that, we signed a deal with DirecTV, but you still can't watch our game this weekend if you have DirecTV.
That's ridiculous. ASU self-imposed a bowl ban for this year, so there's that.
Yeah, they're trying. Looks like they're trying to.
We brought up the Michigan thing. We brought up like Michigan be like, what is all that other stuff like settled out yet, or like?
I mean, I guess.
What are they doing?
I don't know. I mean, they play East Carolina and 2 other teams that they'll destroy. So I do like what they're doing with the assigning like a different head coach for every game. I think that's cool.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. So like the first game, I don't know, one of the other assistants is the head coach, and then the second game, somebody else is the head coach.
Isn't his dad one of the assistants now?
His dad's like a special advisor or something.
I think, but that only happened because of the ban and all that, right?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, they're all weird anyway.
Milk and khakis.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But we kind of went through the schedule real quick. Yeah, there's like not Colorado, TCU. We mentioned my guys play Virginia. They're awful, so they should destroy them. But there's not like Ohio State opens up at Indiana. They're a 30-point favorite. Like I didn't realize Indiana was supposed to be dog baby this year. I think their over-under's like 3.5. But yeah, not
Georgia
Pitt
opens up at UT Martin.
Yeah, Pitt has the Wofford Terriers as their tune-up for the Bearcat. So yeah,
Penn State, West Virginia. No, I mean just
basically what I'm saying is by going to the UC game, you're not going to miss much. It's Saturday.
Yeah. No.
Like, what is the big Saturday night game is North Carolina at South Carolina on ABC. Like, that's the big one. So it's not, for the sickos, Coastal Carolina at UCLA 10:30 Saturday night is a should
On
be a
ESPN.
decent one. Yeah.
And then you go into
ESPN.
Sunday. You get Sunday has the FSU LSU game, which will be obviously hopefully pretty good. And then Monday you get Clemson and Duke.
Oh, buddy.
For the big Monday night game.
Appointment viewing right there.
8 p.m. Wallace Wade Stadium.
Nothing I'd rather do than stay up till 11:30 on a Monday night watching Clemson Duke.
It sounds like a great idea.
Oh, yeah. Well, anything else we got for week one for our preview show?
No, I'm just, obviously, like you said, like I'm excited to see how things function. That's, I think that's really what we're keying in on is how things function and flow for essentially a brand new team for us. And we'll start off our the Big 12 preseason, and obviously we'll be able to see like some of these other teams and what they've got. Yeah, they might have cupcake opponents too, but like maybe we'll be able to see if they're
it'll be fun to check in on other Big 12 games because that's new
matters.
For me. I've never cared about checking in on other AAC games.
Well, that's the thing. See, Dave, because next weekend when we finish up, and we start our the in-season shows, we'll talk about Big 12 games, and then
Aaron can still recap AAC games. Right. Mm-hmm.
This conference is going to make you guys an hour and a half show instead of an hour show.
Well, we don't want that, so we might keep let you guys continue on with the full conference breakdown because we are, as people know, we want to get this show in an hour. We know that the Bengals are a juggernaut right now. Their pregame stuff for a 1:00 game starts, around this time. So there's no point in trying to butt up against that. And I feel like an hour is a good amount of time to talk about the UC game, a quick recap, next morning type stuff, look at some of the numbers, look around the country and get in and get out, so to speak. So thank you, everybody. I know a bunch of other people popped into the chat. Appreciate you guys jumping on this morning. Happy to be back. Happy to be back with Jeff. Thrilled that Royal Links Golf Tours is back again for another year. We will have Hayden Moore on next week, and then Hayden will also be joining us on whenever we wrap up the season. So we'll figure out when that is, but he will be joining us twice this year. So, if you're a golfer, if you have a golfer that's a friend, a dad, a brother, a sister, a mom, whatever, and they're looking to check out some of the incredible golfing opportunities in England, Scotland, Ireland, I think Italy. They mentioned some Italy to me. I'm going to have to ask Hayden if they're going to the Ryder Cup in a month at my golf course. Did you know that? That's my family's golf course.
Oh, yeah?
Marco de Simone.
Oh.
Well, it's not, but I'm claiming it is.
Well, I mean, that if that's how you have to get onto the course.
Yeah, I'm just going to show up. I'm going to show up in Rome and be like, this is my course. Like, my family built this course.
And if not,
we have the same name, so it's obviously mine.
Just don't let Dan Simon go ahead of you and ruin it.
No, I don't think he's allowed out of the country.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense because he's working on realignment things.
But anyway, thank you guys. Looking forward to this show. We had a blast last year, and hopefully we get to talk about a lot of wins.
Yeah.
So with that, we will we'll sign off for this Sunday. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you back at 10 o'clock next Sunday morning to recap what I expect to be a nice win over Eastern Kentucky.